We have Mr. Fitzpatrick remote, Mr. Grumback remote, Mr. Levine, and Mr. Hirsch, and myself, the chair, Joshua Warwick. And at this point, it being 7 o'clock, I will open the Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 Town of Wayland Board of Appeals hearing. And I'll read the preamble. One may watch or participate remotely with a meeting link that can be found at, and it lists a rather long HTML address. I'm not going to read. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This meeting may be recorded, which will be made available to the public on Waycam as soon after the meeting as is practical. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance if allowed, or by accessing the meeting remotely as noted above. We request public comment be limited to 2 minutes per person. Everyone in attendance should be aware that face masks are now optional for town buildings according to the new face covering guidance dated February 24th, 2022, again listing the HTML address. And with that being 7 p.m., we'll open up this meeting for public comment. And I do know we have some people in person here. If you just want to approach and say your name and address for the record.
Your name and address for the record. My name is Tom Maglione. I live at 29 Rice Road.
Welcome.
I have a brief statement I'll read and then I'll hand out copies of my information. So I'm going to list a brief chronology as a background for why I'm here. In July of 2021, the ZBA approved the special permit number 21-02 for an artificial turf field at the Loper Conservation and Recreation Area. I strongly believe the current project changes are substantive from the project presented to this board 2 years ago. Condition number 2 in your decision calls for substantive changes to be brought back to this board. At the fall 2021 special town meeting, the town approved the 3-year moratorium, so recreation could decide to build a grass field. Spring 2022, town meeting approved funding for a grass field. In summer 2022, the Mass DEP listed the Loper recreation land as a hazardous waste site for soil contaminants, including PFAS, that exceed allowed limits. At a February 21st, 2023 PIP meeting, to present plans to clean the soils, town consultants Weston and Sampson revealed the project intends to use town supplied potable water to irrigate the new playing field and other details that I believe deviate substantially from the approvals given in permit 2102. March 26th of this year, I wrote a letter, including Mr. Wardy, to the town manager and others, where I outlined these substantive changes and searched for a ruling from the building commission. I'll have a copy of that for you. I found no rulings by any building commissioner, so I made a public records request on March 28th. I'll send a copy of that for you. March 29th, I received a reply from the town clerk with a letter from Weston and Sampson dated April 5th, 2022, as a request for approval to go ahead with their current plans. That letter was never answered by any building commissioner, as far as I can tell. So the town's provided me no written response. A year later, it's now past a year since this letter was written. While needing to make topography changes to clean up the soils, project proponents appear to be proceeding with their plans under the original permit. This appears to constitute tacit approval by the town for this project. How do citizens like myself appeal the Wayland Building Department apparently declining to enforce your board's permits conditions? That's my question. I don't expect an answer tonight, but I appreciate getting one. I made 9 copies of everything for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. You know, and just to address that, I believe the records request should have either been dealt with or is being dealt with and being responded to. I know they're working on that, if not already been providing the documentation that you're seeking.
I received from the town clerk notice that my request was closed.
Okay,
So if there are more records, I appreciate getting them as soon as
Well,
possible.
I didn't suggest there's either records or not records. I was not part of that process.
Okay.
I will not have the records as the chair of the ZBA. But I do understand that a response has been provided, and I'm not sure if records were provided or not, but I believe a
There was
response was
nothing in
provided.
there.
Okay,
No letter from any building commissioner, nothing in writing.
okay, that would have been coming from the town clerk, I believe, that was gonna be providing the response to the public.
Again, she closed it the second day with the information I received, which did not include any written response from any building commissioner at any time.
Okay, I can't speak to the substance of that response, but if you have questions with that, I'll follow up with the town clerk on that issue. As far as it relates to enforcement of ZBA decisions, I'm certainly no expert, and I'm the chair here, but I'm certainly no expert on zoning law or the procedure, and I'll rely on some others maybe to fill in the blanks, but I believe that would be an enforcement action, would request from the building department. And then, ostensibly, if you didn't get a response, I'm not sure if that's an appeal directly to the building department. Certainly could go to land court. I think I've seen that happen before, looking for an order for mandamus. We just had a recent issue that someone went that route, looking to compel the building department to give you a response. But otherwise, you would need to follow up on the enforcement action if you were not being heard. I don't know if anybody else has some better information or thoughts relative to your remedies.
So this is a terrible situation. I'm stuck in never land limbo right now. I cannot continue like this. Something has got to happen. I will make sure that it does.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else for public comment?
Yeah, let me just.
If you come up and just say your name and address for the record.
John Sachs, 203 Wallbrook Drive.
Welcome.
This is essentially pertaining to some issue. There are lots of comments. There's been throughout this whole project, people running the project that over and over again try to short circuit the regulations of all kinds. Every time they've done it, it's blown up in their faces, and it caused real delays in the project. It's actually healthy. It gave me enough time to mount an opposition movement, and we beat the first deal. While that gave us a lot of sort of comic relief at times, it made it very, very difficult for us to actually get issues reviewed. They actually try to hide the PFAS from the DEP, and it's not a joke, okay? And it gets worse and worse and worse all the time. We have a situation now where they requested to use an oil permit. They never got an answer. They decided to just go ahead anyway, and the current building commissioner refuses to say anything on whether or not the permit is valid or not. He basically doesn't want to get into it. I can understand his position because I believe it's blatantly illegal. And what I believe you're hearing is that, we have to go to land court to do this. And if we go to land court, it goes back to them. We will probably win. I've discussed it with an attorney. And it'll again delay the project for months. It will go past the timer of the original ZBA permit, which is 2 years. And basically it could even blow up the entire project. There is no opposition to the grass field, really. There really isn't. But they keep doing this stuff over and over again to the point where they get people pissed off. And, they strike back and they say, look, that's what we did at Pitt for the PFAS. Basically, it probably delayed the project for 2 months because they refused to tell us what was going on with the PFAS remediation. So my point is this: somebody in this town has to tell the people running this project they have to stop doing this. Okay, they are pissing people off. They are costing the town money. They are sabotaging their own project. And it really is absolutely ridiculous because, as you said, the only thing is to go to land court.
Well, I'm be careful there. I'm not legal counsel for you, so I'm not suggesting one way or the other. I'm just saying I've seen that happen. Recently, and I'm no expert in this.
And if we do that, how long will it delay the project? And
I do not even begin, but I would seek your own counsel on that, but I think it is an enforcement action. I don't think this board has independent ability to reach beyond what's put in front of us.
Could you do me a favor? Ask the building commissioner why he refuses to move.
I think we need to go through the process. Certainly you'll be on notice from your public comment tonight. And I think that if he's not responsive, then we have to follow
Yeah, and the building commissioner really talk to the people who run the project and tell them to stop shooting themselves in the head every time. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I appreciate your comments. All right, do we have any further public comments in the room here? Hearing none, Manny, is it possible to take a look if we have anybody virtually? Leave go to the attendees 0. No. Okay, so I think it's pretty safe to say public comment. We'll close public comment. Now it's review and accepting of the minutes. And I thought we had pull up the web version here. Okay, yeah. So we have the December 13th, 2022 minutes and the February 14th, 2023 minutes for review and acceptance. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes?
Yes.
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 Wonderful. Any comments? Discussion? Ms. Grumback, you had some changes that you were seeking through email, right? You sent back some comments back?
I think I made some changes to them and forwarded the changes to Manny.
Wonderful. I would move that we approve the meeting minutes subject to Mr. Grumback's changes.
Both sets.
Both sets.
Second.
Thank you very much. We'll take this by roll call vote. Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mr. White. Can you go off mute?
I'm really sorry. Aye.
Mr. Grumback,
Aye.
Mr. Levine,
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch. Aye. Myself, the chair, Joshua Warnick, aye. Passes unanimously. So approved. I have no topics reasonably anticipated by the chair in advance of the meeting. So we will move on. It being 7:13, now I think we can move on to our first hearing of the night. The application of BBGRG TR LLC, doing business as Coach Grill of Wayland on behalf of Hamlin and Company LLC owner, in order to permit outdoor seating related to the existing restaurant use. The property is located at 55 Boston Post Road, which is in the R40 zoning district, case 23-06. Who do we have here on behalf of the applicant? Hi, welcome. You want to just maybe come up to the table so the owl can pick you up and just state your name for the record?
My name is John Burdick. I'm from the corporate offices out of Orlando, Florida, and we represent the number of restaurants that we have in the Boston market, between those on Boylston and Joe's Newberry, and as well as Coach. You're going through the application. I think, as I've mentioned to Manny before, is that, again, this is another one of those years in which, okay, here we are again, and we want to put the tent out as we did last year, the year before, and the year before. So understanding that we have to go through a few folks to get to go forward with it. And so, as you can tell, we indicated on the documents, as it was last year, having 80 seats in. Because of the sewage capacity, we have to limit the number of inside by whatever number we have outside, which is currently on the drawings at 80. We have to limit the number of seats inside by that. So I think we have 188. So we would have to take 80 out of the inside. So talking to the manager, Joe, today, he says what they do is they take out the chairs and tables, whereas some of our restaurants in some of the locations, we just put reserve on there so that at least those people that are serving in those areas that know that is not to be seated, this particular time. And then, should it be inclement weather, all of a sudden comes outside, at least they don't have the chairs stored down in some location. But I leave that up to the operations people. All we're here to do is say 80 outside, we have to take away 80 from the inside. So the 10 is one that we've purchased, and we have a contractor that goes through the exercise of installing that so that the building department can come out and do its inspection and make sure it's secured to protect those the guests or our facility.
I remember this from last year.
Different person, better looking coming this time. Eric was here last year, so sorry.
I'll reserve judgment on that issue.
Oh, okay.
But last year, if I recall correctly, we had sent you to just go to public safety and talk to the police department, because of the governor's rules that were in place at the time, did not require ZBA approval. And I'm wondering what's different about this year than last year. I have not been following that necessarily for the implications to this matter.
I'm not sure if the new guidelines from the state have changed anything dramatically. Other
I
than
thought everything was extended.
it was, that's what I understand. It's been extended another year. I think the one thing is in Boston, I've been working with Mrs. Shelley because we deal with the patio along Boylston Street, the seating on that, as well as I call it, the gutter patios where they deck the parking lane there for a while. And so because they've established, I guess the mayor or someone has established that we want to go permanency on a lot of these. That way, in the future, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to file for it other than just send an application in and says, we're extending it. We're doing the same thing per the drawings that we had last year. So having talked with Manny, we weren't sure because of what the regulations were coming out, whether we need to go ahead and ask the question, which is what we put on the application. Do we need to make this permanency for 2 up to 5 years? So I wasn't sure. And I think that's what really prompted us to bring it to you folks is that something, because Manny said, well, that's up to the board, whether that happens. If we extend it to where it's like 5 years, for example, then all it is just advising the appropriate parties, this is what we're doing as opposed. And that's what Michelle says, that's their goal in Boston proper, is just once we establish permanency for all of these locations, then all they have to do is just file and say you're extending it. Now, it's one of those use it or lose it type of things from what I gather downtown now. So if you don't proceed in the future to accommodate patio seating, you kind of lost it. You didn't have to go back through the rigors of having to get that approval again. So I think if I understand it, the intent was just to ask you folks if this is something
For a longer term?
for a longer term.
Okay.
So it would just make it easier in the future, not have to deal with this time and time again, other than getting the appropriate parties that says, hey, here's it is, building department, you want to come out and take a look at the safety, take a look at the actual.
Hey, Josh.
I think we lost the connectivity to the meeting room there.
Yeah, I think we did.
Shoot him a text.
Thank you.
And get the approval
Oh.
there.
Back.
I think what's that? Mr. Grumbeck, you're.
We,
No, we
we
lost you guys for about a
connectivity for
minute.
a couple of minutes.
Are you back?
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, all good.
I was just saying, last year, we had sent the application, we had suggested to the applicant that they might go down to the police department and simply get approval from the police department because of the governor's rules allowed, invested that power with the police department, I think, health and safety, right?
Yep.
And I believe all those rules have been brought forward and have been extended. And so I think there is a fast track for you for this year. That's, I think that's correct, but I'm no expert here. I think that it would be the same procedure as last year.
Just to follow up with it.
I think it was simply, I think the answer was, and of course, Mr. Larson, the former building commissioner, was here that night, and he had helped guide us to there. But I think that's the fast track answer for you guys for this year, would be simply going down and just asking to do it again, right? Hey, we did it last year, do it again. I understand that, you know, you might be looking for a longer term a solution here, so you wouldn't have to come up and visit us from Orlando every year.
Well, not that I don't mind, it's a great place to come visit. So, but if that's the case, then yeah, then we could go ahead. I think as we chatted, you know, my anticipation with the consent of this particular board is that we would then advise the police and fire and or building department so that they can participate in those aspects of the actual installation of all of that. So, and I'm more than willing to do that.
Well, Jim, Tom, you remember from last year? Do you have a recollection or have some guidance on what you
Well,
think?
so
Well, there-
yes, I do have a recollection, and I that is what we did, and you know, sent them directly to the police department, and I think that we received a document, and I don't believe this has been forwarded to the gentleman who's making the petition. We received some guidance from the town planner that I've read several times, and I'm completely perplexed by the guidance document that we received. But it seems to state two contradictory things. It seems to state that the governor extended the pandemic-related regulation authorized to expedite outdoor dining permit process all the way through April of 2024. But then this memo goes on to state a series of regulations in the town about outdoor seating that I've actually never seen before, and it doesn't really say where these are from. And it implies that if this were to be a special permit application, there's a lot more information that would be needed. So I wanted to ask the board if they've read this document and they're familiar with where these requirements have come from, because as far as I know, the town bylaw wasn't amended to include like an extension of outdoor dining provisions that I'm aware of. I don't recall the zoning bylaw being amended between the last time this application was filed last year and now.
Tom, may I ask, when did you receive that email from the planning board?
I received this from Manny
It was sent on April 5th.
on the 5th of April.
Gotcha.
Yeah, can I weigh in on this?
Please?
Yes.
According to the memo from the town planner, which unfortunately the applicant doesn't have a copy of, the proper place is the select board or the planning board, depending on whether this is a temporary request or a permanent request. And the applicant apparently can have both. My memory historically is that the select board was sort of the board that was going to come up with a set of guidelines or regulations, which would then be applicable to all town boards that received applications. So my impression is the select board has the information and or the planning board does. I apologize to the applicant that you didn't receive a copy of this. But my sense from reading this is that we're really not the board that you should be bringing this to, despite all appearances to the contrary.
It seems to make a distinction in the bullet points between a temporary dining request, which would indeed appear before the select board, and a more permanent request, which would appear before the ZBA with the planning board having an opportunity to weigh in. You're reading it that way, Mr. Chair?
That's right. I think you're correct, Mr. Levine.
That's what I seem to be reading here. However, if they have indeed extended the rules,
They have.
and if it's been extended in toto, we dealt with it last year by sending this back to, What my suggestion might be, is you might want to withdraw without prejudice, and go to the, health and safety, go to, to get this, because I think what I'm hearing here and what I'm seeing here in this, and we should get a copy for the applicant, because I think this would be extremely helpful. Because I
Yes.
think you're looking for a more permanent solution. I think what what's it's saying is, we can't, as a ZBA, act without the planning board weighing in, and you're gonna need a lot more information in order to do that.
Noted, and I think we just put it on there because we thought this board would actually take a look at that as well. I don't think that we have any issues to reducing that and striking that part on the application from, can we go ahead and permanency for 2 to 5 years? I mean, we can just come back.
What
What
I'm,
we need, to
what I'm
your point,
suggesting though,
take it to the safety people and
well, I think we dealt with it that way last year. The rules have been extended. I don't see any reason why we couldn't deal with it in the exact same way we did last year. I'm unaware of any prohibitions or any nuances to the extension of those rules.
I think that's
If
right,
those-
it's just a straight extension.
if they've just been a straight extension, your fastest route, without going through a lot of rigmarole, without producing more, would be to go for this year and walk down to the, health and safety, the police, and just say, listen, we did it last year, the rules have been extended, please approve.
so as the applicant, I will, I agree we'll just make this for a temporary 1-year extension then.
What I'm saying is,
But we will go
not
through
be
the
taking action
appropriate,
at the ZBA.
understand that, but I'm just
Yeah.
stating for the,
Can we
stating that fact that
just print it?
that's what we'll do, representing the company, and we'll go ahead and get with the appropriate people to get the temporary tenant.
Does that seem to make sense to the board? I mean, the logic that I'm using?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think it's the fastest path, for the applicant. Yeah, absolutely.
Done deal.
It gets you what you want without going through all the red tape. However, take note. And next year, I think, come prepared, because you're gonna require, if you're looking for something permanent.
I think the rules will be changing next year.
I would think that they're likely gonna change at some point. And if you're looking for some permanency, I think this gives you a roadmap,
Yes.
of what's gonna be required in the procedure that you'll need to undertake in there. And it will be much more information from, and I'm just looking at this quickly, but, if we're doing a, site plan approval with, that's a much different bar and a lot more information that will require.
I think we could give them that copy because we all have it.
Do you have another copy of this?
I can just reprint it.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. You got it, that one. And I think this formally, you would have to request, and we probably have to do a roll call vote for withdrawal without prejudice. So, I would move that we accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
Second.
Wonderful. And we'll just take this by roll call vote. Mr. Rumback,
Aye.
Mr. White,
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mr. Sarian, welcome.
I'm sorry, I was not following whatever. I just turned on my
Okay.
computer. So.
No worries. Welcome to the meeting, though. Mr. Levine?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch? Aye. Myself, the chair. We're good. Joshua Warnick, aye. The ayes have it. We accept your withdrawal here. Let us know if there's any issue, but that should,
reach out to me.
this is just a straight extension. So last year they handled it this way and it was all kosher. It should be kosher this year, I would think.
And then I said,
But do come back, look.
you know,
St.
I can
John's
say
man.
is I expect you all to coach.
We'll be there.
Enjoy there. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you for those that are on the.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Best luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Being 7:29, we'll move to the 7:10 PM hearing, the continued application of Joshua Fox, attorney agent, on behalf of Herb Chambers owners in order to renovate existing structure to create service bays for customer drop-off and additional storage. The property is located at 533 Boston Post Road, which is in the limited commercial zoning district, case number 23-01, continued from February 14th, 2023 and March 21st, 2023. We have here on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, members of the board. Josh Fox from Rollins and Fox again. And this evening, I am once again respectfully requesting a continuance to the next available hearing. I think it might be in May. We're just trying to get together some meaningful changes to the plans and then submit a comprehensive plan set with a new narrative for both the ZBA and the planning board. And it's taking a little bit longer time than we had originally planned.
Understand, appreciate that. Certainly we can talk about rescheduling. One, just order of, point of order. I'm not gonna be available at the next meeting. And just wondered who was actually I don't think we didn't substantially talk about anything in March, but do we know who was here on the February meeting? Just want to make sure we're gonna have a full quorum available this year.
Mr. Chairman, I recused myself because my son works for Herb Chambers.
Yeah, understood. I think we might figure that out. I think the May meeting may be problematic, given just a quorum issue.
Well, I was in the meeting, I think it was February 14th.
Yeah.
Was actually the meeting where we had some substantive discussion. So I was there. I don't have a note though as to who else was in that meeting.
I
But
was there as
we
well.
had a quorum.
Yeah,
Good. Mr. Fitzpatrick, were you there?
I was, yes.
Sorry, Aida. I think Aida was. She is not here tonight. Mr. Sarian, were you there at the February meeting? No.
I was not.
Okay.
Josh, it was yourself, Tom, Aida, Jim, and Doug, but Jim agrees himself.
And I think Kevin Fitzpatrick was there as well. That gives us 4. So, Counselor, if we reschedule for May, you would just need a, you need a unanimous decision. Understanding that we would not have a quorum of 5, but you could proceed with 4. I'm just unfortunately going to be out of state for work and unavailable at that time. So I just want to call that to your attention. It's certainly your choice.
Thank you.
We could schedule for June, where we could be assured to have a quorum. But I think the difficulty for you is just Aida. Janice is not here tonight. If she had been here tonight, I think that makes it a lot easier.
So may I just ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. The question is, let's assume we proceed with 4 members in May and we don't reach a complete consensus that our presentation is entirely done, and we then ask for a continuance to June, then would you, Mr. Chairman, be available under the Mullen Rule to join, and we would have a board of 5, so to speak?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
That would 100% be available.
if it's okay with you, I think I'd like to proceed on that basis.
It's interesting. That was actually my question as well, because I anticipated that we'll get comments from the planning board that, based on past experience, might be substantial. They might ultimately be simple to get through, but just based on having to go through that and then perhaps having another iteration from the planning board, I was anticipating this would need two meetings ultimately, would be my guess.
Well, wonderful. Let's do that then. Let's continue it to a date certain. The date certain being May 9th at 7:15. All right. Is that okay for you, Counselor?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I would so move that we move this matter to May 9th at 7:15. We have a second. Second, Mr. Hirsch. Thank you. I can always rely on you. We'll take it by roll call vote. Mr. White.
Aye.
Mr. Sarian.
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mr. Grumback.
Recused.
Recused, of course. Mr. Levine.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch. Aye. Myself, the chair, Joshua Warning. Aye. Unanimously. I look forward to seeing you maybe in June, but the rest of the board look forward to seeing you next month.
Unless I can woo them into an approval in May.
I have no doubt with your advocacy skills.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night.
It being 7:35, we can now open the 7:20 PM continued application of David and Melissa Wolf for a shed in a pre-existing non-conforming location. The property is located at 47 Edgewood Road, which is in the R20 zoning district, case number 23-03, continued from March 21st, 2023.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, it's a lot of new faces, I think, from last week or last month. So David Wolf, 47 Edgewood Road, my wife Melissa is here as well. We may be ending up at the end of the day asking for a continuance. Some of you who were here last meeting, I at least have thought this was a relatively simple request for a special permit on the location of the shed. And I have actually sent to Manning earlier today a page and a half, which I'm happy to read, describing that, the just largely included in the special permit application. I think there's a little new information, not a lot of new information. At the last meeting, one of my others, who was attorney, suggested that the board does not have the authority to grant the special permit, and said he was going to write a letter to the board describing that. That showed up late yesterday afternoon, so I haven't really had a chance to look at it. So if the board wants to hear my piece and grant a special permit, then I'm happy to go forward. If the board wants to have a legal discussion about whether you have the authority, I suspect we need a continuance. I guess I'm going to bounce that back to you. You haven't, it looks like with physical faces, nobody's read his letter or my letter. So
I was under the impression that this was going to be continued. So I have not spent the time to review.
well, I spoke with Manny, and it seemed like that would be the best approach, but I'm here to do our piece if you want, but I think a continuance would make sense.
Who was here last meeting? Because we struggled to get the quorum, and I believe we ended up with a quorum. But Aida was part of that quorum, I believe, at the last meeting. So
Yeah.
I was here.
Yeah, I was here.
I can't hear whoever's speaking. I'm sorry.
You're missing out, Mr. Grumback.
Oh.
Brilliance. I guess the point being, if we proceed tonight, we would only have 4.
So you need the same 5 people over and over again for a quorum?
Well, unless people mullins, right? So we can mullinize, they can watch the Wake Cam, video, they can get up to speed on it, and they can then participate. Nobody having done that for this meeting, you would need a unanimous decision of 4 if you proceeded tonight. And I know we're in that situation for the first 45 last meeting. But unfortunately, Ms. Janice, for personal reasons, couldn't be here. That would have to be the same procedure, the same circumstance.
And will you have a group of 5 or whatever number it needs to be for next meeting? Because you were here.
Well, I think what we can ask is, we would ask the board to, all members, who are going to attend for next meeting to mullinize and to spend that time. And so we could assure the best shot of that, because I personally will not be here at the next meeting, but certainly if the members who were absent for last meeting would take that time to mullinize and get their certificates into the town clerk, then you will have a very good chance of having a full board, at which point you'll only need 4 votes to of the 5, but it also perhaps gives people a greater chance to review the package. And if we have if there is a legal question after reviewing the information, then I think maybe we would have the opportunity to engage town council to help us, understand what our legal capacity is. Understand we want to get this right.
That makes sense to me, rather than decide it on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, deciding it maybe without, I haven't read the material, so I apologize. But deciding it, too hastily without maybe some support from town council may open you up to further appeals.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. White.
So we just received, and the applicant may have just mentioned this, we just received a legal memorandum from Sharon and Lodgen. Does the applicant have a copy of this as well?
I think we received that before the last hearing. I think that.
No, it's dated
Sandy-
It's dated April 10th.
Okay,
Is there something? Sometime, yes.
okay, because I remembered Sandy McLean making an argument.
I would ask you to send those to me directly next time.
I'm like counsel and I was uncomfortable dealing with you directly. I'm happy to send it to you. I sent it to Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the original was in March 8th, letter of opposition.
Correct. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is just a new document. I mean, I only bring it up because, to the board, I don't know how the other members feel. It's very difficult for us as a volunteer board to get another legal document sent to us, like the night before the hearing, and then expect we're going to be able to digest this document and sort of have a meaningful discussion about it this evening. And again, I don't know if the applicant has seen this either. And again, it wouldn't have been sent to them. I'm not saying anyone made a mistake by not sending them, but as a public process, all of the stuff has to be out there and reviewed. So much like the chair mentioned, I wouldn't want to necessarily proceed without everyone having a chance to sort of review this and make sure that this sounds like a relatively complicated process that we have to go through. I just want to make sure we're doing this procedurally correctly.
I have a question for the applicant. Did you say, Mr. Wolf, that you had just received something from your attorney and haven't had a chance to review it?
No, I received it from the.
From attorney, from Sharon and Lodgen?
Yes, that's.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
actually the same thing. I'm not sure who it was that you said, that just received it yesterday and haven't really had a chance to review it. and
Yeah,
suggest-
I would suggest to you that you speak to an attorney, because this is a legal issue. Attorney Rick Lean, Sharon and Lodgen, they've done these things before. And I would suggest to you that it would make sense for you, rather than just coming in empty-handed, to go to an attorney, review the letter with the attorney, and then make a decision, either prepare an opposition or do something, because I just recommend that you be prepared, because we are duty bound to follow the law. And we may, in fact, ask town council to come in, but with a legal memorandum like this opposing you, I think you're better off sharing it with an attorney.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that as frustrating as this time is ticking away, I understand. I think that's probably your best, not only for the quorum, making sure we can have 5. We'll certainly ask people to mullinize before the next one. Yeah, and then I think, you'll have the best shot at this, as well as, seeking counsel if you want to. That's certainly your choice. And I don't know, because I was under the impression this was going to be continued, but Mr. White is an excellent point. Receiving, documents from either side makes it extremely difficult for this volunteer board, to digest. And I can't sit here and understand whether I'm going to need to engage town council or not, but we certainly want to make this correct for all parties, and we want to make sure that we can have a conclusive decision to the extent we can possibly have. And so I would request that we continue this if it's acceptable to you at a date, time, and certain, which would be May 9th at 7:20. Would that be?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So moved. We have a second. Second. Mr. Hirsch, thank you. We'll take this by roll call vote. Mr. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sarian,
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mr. Grumbach,
Aye.
Mr. Levine,
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch. Aye. Myself, the chair, Joshua Warren, aye. It passes unanimously. We will see you May 9th at 7:20. And like I said, I just asked the board members that were not present for that March meeting to spend the time in Mullinize. And we will resume and hopefully be able to be in a much better position to give you some finality. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. I will entertain motions.
Move to end the meeting.
I will second that. I will be your second, Mr. Hirsch. All right, so we'll take this by roll call vote. Mr. White,
Aye.
Mr. Sarian,
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mr. Grumbuck,
Aye.
Mr. Levine,
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch. Aye. Joshua Warning, the chair. Aye. The ayes have it. Have a wonderful night. This is a record. We didn't even get going at the last meeting until this moment. So we will see you guys, or I won't, but you will.
Thank you all. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, be good.
Yeah.